Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. I'm Obi, and I am so honored, happy to be here with you today. So, your life is calling. For so long, I had people tell me many times not to let anyone tell me or make me feel that I was not enough. But my question is, what if that person is me? Because for so long, that was exactly how I felt. I felt that I was not enough. My life, I knew that there was so much more for me to do. I knew that I hadn't even begun to scratch the bottom of the barrel, the sides of what I was, my potential, my gifts, my talents. I wanted more. But I was handicapped by fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of past mistakes. So I held myself captive. I allowed myself to hold myself captive. Now, don't get me wrong, let me explain. I had a good life on paper. I had dream jobs. I had what many would call dream jobs. I worked for some of the most amazing, enriching global corporate organizations. I worked with amazing people, but I knew that there was more. You see, as I built the corporate dream, as I lived the corporate life, I lost myself. I was stuck because I knew there was more, but I didn't know that I was capable of doing more. I allowed myself to talk myself out of exploring what the yearnings that I had in my heart were. I thought that what I had done so far was all that I could do. So, as I say, as I built that dream, I didn't know when the corporate dream, came to an end. And I certainly didn't know when it turned into a nightmare, but it did. What I do know is that my body would go to work, but my soul stayed at home because it knew that there was more. I hadn't explored the goals and the dreams and the gifts that I was blessed with. It knew that whilst I achieved success in one part of my life, one season of my life, it knew that that season had come to an end. It was time for me to start a different dream, even though I didn't believe in myself. So I lived a misplaced life, a life that I had outgrown. So let me ask you, how many of you know that you've done so much already, but you know that there's more for you? You know that you haven't even begun to touch the sides of your gifts, your God-given gifts. Perhaps like me, you're looking in the mirror and you're saying, there's got to be more. But maybe you're also saying, what are you talking about? You've got a good life. Why do you want more? Why do you want to rock the boat? Be happy with what you've got. Be content. That was me. Type yes. Type yes if anything I'm saying resonates with you. Type yes. Type Yana. You are not alone. Yana, you are not alone. But there was one day in January 2020, I will never forget that day. That was the day that life got in my way and stopped me and said, enough, it's time for you to do you. That day, I remember sitting in a small meeting room in the office building where I worked. I was about to deliver some unwelcome news to a senior business leader. I hadn't slept very well the night before because I felt that this meeting had the potential to be challenging. What I didn't know is just how challenging it was going to be. So I remember sitting in that room and I delivered, the meeting started pleasantly enough, and then I delivered my update. And at first there was silence, and then out it came. The loud, angry roar of this senior business leader bouncing off the walls of this small room, causing it to vibrate. I remember that my hands were shaking and I had to hold on to the edges of the table to steady myself. I remember beads of sweat dripping down my face. I remember that my heart was racing and my head pounded. I also remember at one point my mouth opened. I couldn't have trusted what would have come out at work. But I didn't need to worry because all of a sudden there was a peaceful calm that came over me. My heart steadied, my hands steadied, my head cleared. And I remember there was a very quiet voice, a very still voice in my head. It said to me, not today. I got up, I gathered myself, I gathered my stuff, and I left. Let me explain. I don't mean I left the meeting. I don't mean I left the building. I don't mean I left the job. I mean I left that life. That day, I knew as I walked away from that building that my life was never going to be the same again. That day, I knew as I walked away from that building that I wasn't walking away from something. I knew I was walking towards my destiny, my future, myself, my life. I realized at that point that I had been tiptoeing through life like I was trying not to wake anyone up, when in fact it was me who was sleeping. In the words of J.M. Power, if you want to make your dreams come true, the first thing you have to do is wake up. So I want to ask you, how many of you are sleeping on your dream, sleeping on your goals, sleeping on your future? It's time. It's time to disrupt the status quo. It's time to do you. It's time to realize that you are, in fact, enough. You see what happens when we don't believe that we are enough, when we disqualify ourselves from living our best life, when we discount our talents, our gifts, and our potential. What happens? We think small, we act small, we play it safe, or worse, we don't even play at all. So, have you ever talked yourself out of exploring new horizons, of starting a new dream, of exploring new opportunities because you're telling yourself that you are not enough? Since that day, since that fateful day in January 2020, when I decided to walk into my future, I have authored my first book. I have shared the stage once already with a legend that is Les Brown. I have been in close contact with Lisa Nichols, and I share my message to inspire you, to share with you that whatever goals and dreams you have in your heart, you wouldn't have them if your heart didn't believe that it was possible. I want to ask you, to challenge yourself to disrupt the status quo, to discover all of who you can be, to scratch that itch. This is one itch that you're allowed to scratch. You need 4 key steps to do that, what I call my 4 key steps: clarity, courage, commitment, and conviction. I want to invite you to go to www.yourlifeiscalling.life and download my 4 key steps, because your life is calling.